public announcement?
Announcement.
Public.
Vote today. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
You know, that was the election that you and I were supposed to be on the ballot, and the mayor.
That's right. But we just, good morning. Anyway, go vote. For every, because sometimes, yeah, because a lot of times.
How are you?
Good morning, especially this time of year, people.
How are you? Not bad, not bad. I put the request in. I don't know if, I haven't been out there to see if it's out there yet.
Okay.
On Academy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that reminds me, I need to text my guy and let him know that's what we're doing. But, yeah, thank you.
No problem. The other thing too is that it's a quality of life issue. So we have standards or whatever, and we usually put out speed bumps under certain circumstances. But if the clear majority of the neighborhood wants it, the only thing is that I don't want to be in a situation where one person asks for it, it doesn't qualify, but we do it anyways, and then I find out that everyone hates it.
Well, if that were the case, certainly, I mean, I would be quite, even though it's Eric's district, I would be happy to kind of.
Well, someone's got to do it. If he's not going to do his job, someone's got to do it.
Yeah, I know.
Good morning. What do you do?
I've got me, it's one of your constituents, a number of your constituents.
Well, if it's a speed table like we used to have on Dixon,
Yeah.
those are okay, but the sheet comes by, screw in.
It's got to be historically significant.
Eric, that was yours. Can we have it?
Oh, is that mine?
Yeah.
Well,
How are yours?
Good morning. We're going to call our meeting to order this morning. I would ask if you have cell phones to please turn them off or silence them at this time, please. We would stand and have a pledge of allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Reed and prayer by Councilmember Malinowski.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'd like to join us in prayer, I invite you to remain standing. Gracious and guiding Spirit, we thank you for the privilege of serving this community.
Yes.
Grant each council member wisdom to see clearly,
Yes.
courage to act justly, and humility to listen with open hearts. May every discussion be marked by respect, every decision shaped by fairness, and every outcome serve the good of all who call this city home. Bless our work and help us to build a community of integrity, hope, and shared purpose. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. All our council members are present this morning, and the topic for discussion, minutes for review work session of August 29th. We can get a nod, and September the 8th, get a nod to approve those to go to the consent agenda. Okay. Put those on the consent agenda, Madam Clerk. Topics for discussion, city manager topic. Mr. Clamp.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I only have a few items today. Deborah has passed out the flyer for Cities United. It's that time of year again where she needs to know who's planning on attending and if you're going to take courses, which courses. So please get together with Deborah on that. I also just wanted to announce that I had the great honor and pleasure of attending the NAACP annual banquet Saturday night. It was a wonderful event, and I congratulate and applaud President Pastor Brown for an incredible event. The item that I have for you today deals with gas. Annually, we are required to ask you to fill out a brief survey. Just indicates to us what you remember and if you've forgotten anything in the last year, what that might be, so that Sean can fill in the gaps for you. So we would ask that you fill in that survey today. Also, we're getting closer and closer to the resurfacing of Main Street. That's good news and bad news. It's good news because it's necessary. It's bad news because it's going to cause calamity during the process. So Sean has tried to the best of his ability to keep in contact with GDOT, and he has an update for us today. Sean?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I tried to just get you guys a handout to where you could see what our notification has been thus far. Some of this information is assumed. I've talked to several different people with GDOT, and this is just the way their projects have gone in the past. So this is nothing that's set in stone. I'll begin by saying that the letting of the resurfacing project will take place on November 21st when they open the bids. And the project, as you know, is going to extend from Main Street at the Triangle all the way to the bypass. It's going to affect a lot of the traveling public, but there is special provisions that has been requested for time slots that doesn't interfere with school hours and things like that. So, such as no lane closures and or detours set up during that time. This is under their annual maintenance and rehabilitation program. I don't know how long it's been since Main Street's been resurfaced, but I dare to say the traffic wasn't like it is now when it was done last. So, after the 21st bid letting, they'll award the contract normally within 2 to 3 weeks. Now, one of the gentlemen did say that since they have pre-qualified contractors now, that sometimes that moves along a lot quicker, and then sometimes it's 2 or 3 weeks later. We're getting into the holiday season by now, so they may just say, hey, we're going to wait until January 1st to move forward with awarding the contract. Once the contract is awarded, GDOT will schedule a pre-construction conference with the contractor, and at that time, the city and all affected utility owners will be invited to that conference to ask questions, and will be provided with a detailed timeline and construction schedule at that point. We'll also find out about the special provisions for traffic control during that time. So this pre-construction conference will allow the city to review the scope and timeline and ask questions as far as project phasing, access, and utility coordination. And the notice to proceed for construction will be issued after the conference. Generally, that's a week or so after the conference, after the final detailed project schedule has been released. So the city will maintain ongoing coordination with GDOT. Our inspector will be allowed to go out and inspect them raising and them adjusting our facilities, such as manholes, valves, and the like. And we can note items that we want put on the punch list to be repaired before the final acceptance of the project. As I mentioned earlier, traffic management, detours, and work hours will be addressed at the pre-construction conference. And then we'll provide public updates through the website, social media, and newsletters as construction nears. As soon as we find out, when they're going to be boots on the ground first day, we'll go ahead and start putting those dates out to the public, so the public's informed. And it's going to be an inconvenience, but we don't want any surprises.
Right.
With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
I've asked Sean to coordinate with police, fire, and our schools. The schools will be impacted by this. We certainly want to coordinate with Sarah and our Main Street downtown program, make sure the merchants are fully aware. We might even use Code Red if necessary. And I've asked Sean to coordinate with Ken on social media or whatever, but this is going to be a difficult time, but it's wonderful news that it's getting done. It's definitely needed.
I got a question, Sean, do you think that it would involve one, the stoppages where you have a one-way and then stop?
A lane closure?
From lane to lane.
Lane closures will most likely be involved. Detours, they're not thinking that there's gonna be any detours necessary. When you get into detours, you have to set those up so that truck traffic can follow those detours, and we don't, we get truck traffic on local streets, it turns into a mess.
Could be a good opportunity to introduce some of our truck drivers to the bypass.
Exactly. Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks for that report, Sean, appreciate that.
So, I'm so sorry, Sean, one more, I mean, just, what kind of effort can we make to keep people from taking the side streets? I mean, is there anything we can do to kind of deter or reduce the folks that might want to jump over on one of the side streets?
The construction crews will have, generally when they get into tight areas where there's a lot of traffic and side streets, they'll have, their crews will be close by each intersection. But we will also inform the public way ahead of time so that they'll know that, to avoid the area while there's lane closures or anything like that. We will have an occasional stray truck driver that comes in off the bypass, and he's gonna have to.
Barrels down old posts.
He's gonna have to continue on through. We're not gonna have any blockages, so,
Yeah.
he'll just have to wait for the flagman to let him through in the other lane.
Do you remember a while back when we had the tractor trailer that made its way into our cemetery, supposedly following GPS, knocked over a couple of monuments and somehow ended up in the cemetery? So I wouldn't be surprised if they're getting misdirected all over the place.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, we have a question over here.
Okay.
Yes. I just wasn't clear. Triangle to which bypass, south or north?
North.
And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay, wow, thanks. Urban Redevelopment Plan Update, Councilmember Peters Reed and Molly Bogle. And following that, Councilmember Reed is going to also talk about the Angela Parks deeds. Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
Councilmember.
Mayor. Good morning. Neighborhood forums were held for both URAs on October 18th and focused on feedback on preliminary recommendations developed by the project advisory groups. Thank you to Council members Joyce and Malinowski for joining. Neighborhood surveys have been distributed to all households within each URA. If you live in either area and did not receive the survey, please contact Molly Bogle. If you received a survey but have yet to respond, please do so soon. I'd also like to ask Councilmember Blanton and Malinowski to encourage their constituents to complete the survey in the upcoming weeks. Planning staff are finalizing drafts for the existing conditions assessment and preliminary recommendations report for your and the community's viewing ahead of the final PAGs, which have been scheduled for November 25th. And I'd also like to ask Molly to join us to review a few scheduled changes. And my wedding is over, so I'm free again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming to the wedding.
Sure. Okay, about the deeds. Oh, Molly.
Molly.
Oh, yeah, just briefly. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. At our last work session, we discussed some additional hearing procedures that you all wanted to see for the transportation plan. And so with that in mind, we went ahead and included that in the schedule for the URP. I did want to make note, I did look at the section of the ordinance that was cited. It was 1110.3. And just want to be clear, because I am responsible for making sure that you are complying with all zoning ordinance regulations. And so The reason that wasn't on the transportation plan and wasn't on the URP schedule was because the language is that the commission is hereby vested with the following powers and duties. And the second sentence is the mere authorization to undertake these functions shall not be considered a mandate for the commission to perform all these functions. So we have in the past always included a planning commission member on our project advisory groups, and we felt that that met that need. That is not how we're moving forward with the transportation plan, and so my assumption was that is not how we were wanting to move forward with the URP. So I've included hearings in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to your hearing. You'll notice in the schedule that's on the screen here, we did have to push out that third project advisory group meeting to November from October. And that's just to get some conceptual plans together for their review and comment before those get finalized for your all review. The town halls then were pushed to January and February, and then a Planning and Zoning Commission hearing scheduled for February prior to a hearing scheduled for March. Now, I tentatively on my sort of internal calendar place those town halls and those hearings on your regular meeting schedules, but I will coordinate with Manager Clem and the city clerk to confirm what dates are preferable for that. Those are just sort of working dates internally, but generally speaking, those are the months that we're shooting for. So any questions? Now would be a great time if there's any additional hearing requirements or things that you'd like to see on the hearing process. Would be a great time to hear that now, so I can go ahead and make sure that's reflected in the schedule, that the community is aware of that, and that we have that working internally so we're keeping on track.
If I've got it right, Molly, is the planning and zoning work session is on that agenda, the transportation plan, and then it's also on the voting.
Yes, it's on the work session agenda because anything is on the work session agenda that's on their regular meeting. And then it will go, so we're transitioning to the transportation plan, will go to their regular meeting hearing.
On the, was that 16th or the 20th? I kind of forgot.
Third Thursday, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what that exact date is, yes. And that would be the same for this plan. It would go on their work session agenda because all agenda items go on their work session agenda. And then it would go for a regular hearing, and then they would make a recommendation and bring that to you.
I will say Betsy and I were looking at the board out here, and the meeting agendas for planning and zoning meetings are posted all the way down to December 1st.
Yeah.
Way, at least 3 meetings posted ahead of time. Really, really good.
Great.
Okay. Any more questions for Molly? Not.
All
Thanks,
right.
Molly.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the update.
Thanks.
I love it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have questions about the deed. I've just had the Andrews Committee to constantly call me and ask me about the deeds for Andrews Park. So I just have questions. Where are we with the deeds? And also have constituents that are asking. So where are we now, Mr. Clem or Jay?
I can take this one. I've been told that the county is waiting on me for something, but they're not telling me what they're waiting on me from. So
Okay.
I've reached out to the county attorney and asked for his title work because he has communicated to me that they did order title. He has not sent that to me, so I've ordered my own title. And I will do whatever I can, but I can't force them to sign a deed. So, but I can
Okay.
prepare one if that's what they're waiting on me, but,
Okay.
so, I'm moving it along.
Okay. Mr. Clem, did you have anything?
I have been in regular contact with Jay, and so I'm familiar with his challenges. I would just make sure, or try to make sure that the community understands that
Yes.
planning has done a tremendous amount of work, Public Works has done a tremendous amount of work, we're ready to go, but we can't do it if we don't own
The deed.
legally own it. And so we have to get this hurdle of ownership past us. Much to their credit, I have regularly communicated with the county manager, and they have been 100% supportive. They want to get this thing over with, but
Yes.
sometimes we need to force things, and so maybe, Jay, we need to just keep pushing, because it's just been stuck for too long.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, both.
Thank you. Zoning Administration and Process Revision, Monica and Molly.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning.
So today, we are doing a little bit of feedback and pros and cons about looking at Article 11, which is administration and enforcement in our zoning ordinance. Betsy had brought this to our attention, that it was something that she'd like to talk about in terms of variances. We suggested it go on a work session, and so now we're at the work session. So what we would like to do is to get started on whatever amendments, changes that y'all would like us to do. To be clear for the public in the room, we have not started on this yet. There is no public record on this yet, and so our public record, other than the council meeting that Betsy had brought it up, begins today. So we are happy to take input from you. I've made a couple of notes this morning looking over Article 11, and I thought it might help us guide the conversation. But what we would like is to definitely get some feedback and direction from you on what to touch and how much to touch. If you're content for us to kind of give you an outline and kind of walk through it, we'll start there.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay, so the first question I have for you is not meant to be smart, and I want to be clear about that. I am actually asking an honest question. I am questioning whether now, in the political climate that we find ourselves in, from the national down to the local level, where there is an assumption of malintent from the get-go, whether the city would be better served to have this written out of house. And I say that with very frank honesty. We can follow the normal process where we write it in-house, we save money, you have trained local experts who actually train other elected officials, and then we send it to the high-priced attorney for review. And both Frank and Kathy Zickert have reviewed our zoning drafts in the past. And then we get it back, we take rocks, y'all listen to long dialogue about it, and then we move forward. Or the other option is we pay somebody 4 or 5 times what I make, my hourly rate, or 6 or 7 if it's Kathy, because she's private market, right? And they write it, and they come and present it, and they defend it because they are trained to defend themselves regularly to the laws they present. So I'm really not being smart. I'm asking if it is a better use of taxpayer dollar and our time and your time. The public has every right to make complaints, concerns, and suggestions. I'm not cutting that off. I'm querying whether it is more efficient use of time for us and smarter use of resources if we hire it out. And so we are content to do it in-house, and we'll follow the same process, but do you want Frank to tackle it? Do you want us to tackle it? How do y'all want to proceed with that? And then I'll go down the points, because either way, either we have to go down these or we give this information to Frank or Kathy and they go down it. So
how much time will it take staff to do this?
I think this is a fairly easy rewrite. There have only been 4 generations of this section of the ordinance since 1969, the year I was born. So this is not a section that has a lot of edits that are surprising. And I think once we get down the list of the 4 different types, y'all can give us pretty clear direction. And I think it's a 2-week rewrite.
So you would still need, I guess, suggestions from Frank or Kathy as you
Well,
move
we can
along?
either prep it and submit it for review, or we can use attorney dollars and have Jay prep it, and we probably will still get an outside review, or we have an outside reviewer actually prep it. We've just entered the era in local governance where the local staff no longer is considered a local expert, so therefore it might be just easier to overpay and get the outside expertise. And I certainly, I promise you, I'm not being smart about
No,
it.
no, that's
We
good.
understand, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yeah,
may?
sure.
First of all, I hope the council still views you as local experts. So that's why you're here, in your top of your game. The other thing is, I mean, I could see if we were asking for something like seriously complicated and just like completely revamping the whole zoning thing. I think all I was asking for was for us to have a look at our variance procedure so that we are very clear about how we take those standards and allow variances to occur based on qualifying with a minimum amount of standards, like 5 or 3, whatever we decide. But the problem was, up until now, and this is my view, and I think it's shared by some of the council members, if not all, that we were kind of in a pickle before because we really didn't have enough specific guidance. So it was sort of like, yeah, I feel like this is okay. No, I feel like, not. And sorry, this goes back to long before I got on the council, when I was educated on variances and how they are almost like an act of God. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, this doesn't look like an act of God anymore. This looks like, yeah, whatever, have one. So, and maybe that's what we do down the road. Maybe we decide we have a minimum requirement for this meeting certain standards to have variances. But anyway, I just want us to take suggestions from our expert council, some of whom are out the entire state giving workshops and guidance. But anyway, I'm just saying.
So I'm just looking for consensus. If y'all have confidence that planning staff can rewrite the section, we're happy to rewrite it and submit it for review. That is the cheapest thing for the taxpayer, but we want also it to be the easiest thing for y'all. And so we don't want to become the roadblock because we're the ones who are writing things.
For me, I'd like to see it in-house. I don't know if anybody else.
I would totally agree. This sounds like a vote of confidence from us, but.
I want to make sure that's your intent. If that is general consensus, then I'll start working through the sections. Is that okay?
Go ahead and start working through the sections as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you're in Savannah teaching classes to other cities, so why can't you?
I didn't mean it like that. I'm actually,
I mean that as a compliment.
Well, thank you. I don't lack the confidence to write it. I just want to make sure that it's easier when we're going for presentations. Okay. All right. So normally when we touch a section, we try to go ahead and figure out all the things that we've been tallying up in our office that have not been working well for sometimes 1 year, 2 year, and even 5 or 6 years. There was a time when we had a very adversarial mayor where we actually would write down things that were a problem, but we would tuck them to the side because it wasn't politically the time to put it all on the table. So we went back through and we've been talking about the things that have been wrong with this section or could be improved about this section for a while. And so I'm going to start with what Councilmember Wagenhauser brought to my attention, which is variances. And I'm just going to point out the pros and cons of the things that we have in the variance section. So, and then I'm going to end with, after hitting each of the types of zoning actions, I'm going to end with a conversation about procedure, if I can. So the first thing is variances. What we're seeing, and this is not criticism of you, we've seen it fluctuate. Sometimes it's the Planning Commission, and sometimes it's y'all. But we're seeing an increasing leniency to grant variances. You've heard from, and I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth, you've heard from Councilmember Joyce from time to time that it's really important to be consistent and not undermine our zoning ordinance. The undermining of the zoning ordinance never comes from a text amendment change. Zoning ordinances are fluid. Where the undermining of the zoning ordinance comes from is variances. And so it really is important that they be, I don't want to say an act of God, but maybe they should be a pretty high hurdle to get a variance. Because what a variance is, and I'm going to use the example that Molly and I always try to use to explain to the public. A variance is a section of the ordinance where the law says the speed limit is 65. And you're telling someone, they've come in and they're saying, I need to go 85 down this road. And they may need to do it because they're taking their mother to the hospital. That's an emergency, an unforeseen circumstance. Or they may want to do it because they like that road and it feels pretty fast to them and they feel like they ought to be allowed to speed, okay? That does not warrant a variance. So we have enough standards in the variance section. We're going to suggest that the pros are that what we need to do is just add a little clarity to those. We don't feel like they're unclear, but maybe they could be made more clear. So under variances, we think they need to be more clear. From year to year, we have also pulled Frank in to give both the Planning Commission, the Mayor and Council, and some cross-training with our other two regulatory boards, a little bit of tap on the hand to remind you annually that variances ought to be the exception and never the rule. If there are 2 or 3 variances a year, it should knock me down. So I'm looking for your feedback on variances. I'm trying to parse it by section. So what we're seeing is we need to maybe improve the level of clarity in the standards, and we're seeing a need for more consistent decision-making. The Planning Commission has become a little bit more consistently of a no, and y'all have become a little bit more consistently of a yes. Again, no criticism, just observation. Thoughts?
So, in the past, what has been the consensus between the council and you guys?
You mean the planning commission?
Planning commissioners?
It's all over the map when it comes to variances. They used to be the ones that would listen to more of the Barbara Streisand feelings conversations. Emotive, when someone is standing in front of you for a variance, you're reviewing the property, not the person. And so you're reviewing the circumstances that they're asking for the speeding, not the person asking for the speeding. And so in this instance, we think that y'all have become more lenient and the Planning Commission has become more, yeah, and that may be because they receive zoning training at least every other year, and y'all's might be a little bit more infrequent to kind of remind you that we need to stick a little closer to the standards.
The comment about undermining the zoning, applicants always, even though variances are specific, legally specific to one property.
Yes, sir.
And have no implications for anybody else. It doesn't stop the applicants, sometimes with the planning department's acquiescence, to quote other existing similar situations.
Yes.
So-and-so 3 blocks away got the pool.
Yeah.
And down the street, there's another pool there, or a fence, whatever.
Yep.
And that, basically, if it is a specific action we're taking for one property, none of that other stuff should ever be brought up. Am I right or wrong there?
You're both right and wrong, is my understanding from Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins says if the property is similarly situated, they should get the same variance. So I'm going to use a recent example without names. If someone buys a house knowing that a pool won't fit on the property, and it's a 1/4 acre lot, and someone else buys a 1/4 acre lot that's not a corner property, that also knowingly bought a property that was too small for a pool, then they should get the same answer, whether that's a yes or whether that's a no. But it falls definitely under that similarly situated. If the council, in a finding, articulates how those two are different, then those are not similar situated, and therefore it has no precedent and you don't have a problem. But there has to be a different circumstance that you've noticed, observed, or articulated, or otherwise, yes, we do have a consistency problem.
I always got a kick out of the standard. I think I've brought this up a number of times. The one standard is, does the granting of this variance give any special benefit that isn't given to other citizens? Well, that's the definition of a variance.
Yeah.
of course it's giving something that no one else gets. I mean, why that's in there intrigues me. It's almost like define a variance. It's an exception to the rules that applies to everybody else.
Well, I would say the reason that's there is because you have seen a lot of variance requests for things that are perhaps more elective in nature. But the variance procedures are actually there to provide relief for very common things like a wedge-shaped lot that has a ravine in the rear that is only able to place an 800 square foot home on it if they are to meet the front setback. But if you allow for them to press forward of that front setback, they can have a 1,200 or 1,600 or a 2,000 square foot home that is similar in nature to the neighborhood that they're within. Does that make sense? So that's not giving them, that's not granting them something that other people aren't getting. You're saying that if you have to meet these standards, you can have an 800 square foot home, or you can push forward of the front setback and have a 1,600 square foot home like everyone else along this street. So I think the reason is because you're getting a lot of variance requests that are not, they're more for elective things.
So the other thing I want to bring up about variances, just quickly to get your feedback on. So variances remain the administrative version of zoning actions by state law. So therefore, they could be finally decided at the lower level. So you could put yourself in more of a judicial role where you're reviewing whether the Planning Commission did their job. This would be a change. We do not do this currently under our zoning and never have. However, our Planning Commission has now been in place long enough that they're doing a good job. This may be something you want to consider so that people aren't playing out the emotive political angle in front of you at your council meetings. It would be very similar to how the Corridor Board and the HPC operate. They're quasi-judicial. The decisions are made at the lower level board, and then it only comes up to you on appeal. And so you could hand that off. That is something we could explore. We can even write it and you can think about it and decide to not do it. We would not have recommended that when the Planning Commission was first formed. We do recommend that now with a higher degree of confidence. One is we have very good chair and vice chair and good leadership on the board, and Jill is now staffing them. So we feel a new level of confidence in our citizen committee, and so that is something you could entertain for the first time and maybe save yourself some stuff on the docket.
If I may, my only concern with that is that the commission changes. And so while now you are very confident about who's on the commission and able to make certain decisions that would reflect what the council would want in terms of adhering to variances, I'm concerned if, when that shifts, but we have it in the as part of the ordinance or whatever, then all of a sudden we're back to square one and everyone's waving their hand. So I would be down for that if, again, the guidelines were a little bit firmer in terms of you have to meet these certain standards.
I hear
mean,
that.
This is kind of my opinion.
I would also say that we probably had that same level of pre-professionalism out of our HPC when I first arrived. And my job in the first 10 years was to bring them up to a level that they could act with a degree of legal defensibility. And we believe the Planning Commission has reached that. Both the HPC, the Corridor, and Planning and Zoning all change memberships. And so if you want to entertain it, we'll work on the guidelines, and y'all can, it'll be one of the options we prep for you. We're not making decisions. I want to be clear for the public. We're not making decisions. We are prepping options for the council's consideration, okay? So I wanted to hit that one. That's the only one you could hand off, so we wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. A lot of cities actually have zoning, what do they call them? Variance, zoning review boards, and they handle that at a lower level, and they don't do planning at all because we've kind of recognized that they're not trained in planning. All right, so the second one is the conditional use. So conditional uses, the state law has changed a little bit, and so we do want to look at that. We also want to align it with the state law and call them special uses. Although I hate the term because it sounds like a special privilege we're conferring on somebody. That is what our grand legislature has titled it. And now that y'all are approving zoning sometimes with conditions, it has gotten the public confused on what a conditional use is and zoning with conditions. So we're going to suggest that we now mirror state law and call it a special use permit. And Jay's in concurrence with that. We've already talked to him about that. In terms of reviewing past decisions, what we're seeing is that the commission and the mayor and council have struggled with the way the language is written because it says all of the conditions have been met. Rick has queried Frank directly during training in the past whether it could be some or all. Frank was very clear that it could be just some, and then I think Rick challenged him and said, well, how many out of the 7? And Frank said, how many ever the council decides, you have discretion. I believe Councilmember Joyce has also begged this question at council meetings. So we think that first we need to change the language to say or. We need to look and make sure that there's clarity in those conditions. And then we need some feedback whether you would like it to say, we know it doesn't need to say all, and it may not need to say or. If y'all want it to say meet a majority or meet some, or how do you feel about that? I'm looking at your faces. Y'all tell me.
So, and we're referring now to conditional use.
Yes, that's why I'm handling them very
I understand, perfect, yes.
exclusively. No, I went back and looked at it. Conditional uses says and that's a problem. Or at least my quick read this morning was. Yeah, it does say and. Each application shall include review standards. Conditional use shall be approved only when it meets all of the following conditions have been met. Or you think this is the old version? So, if it does say or, how many? Majority of?
So the current conditional use standards just say most pertinent. It's the variance standards that say all must be met.
Okay, then we'll make sure that one's right.
Yeah.
My apologies, Molly corrected me off of the current one that's posted. The current one that posted, the full is on variances. We'll fix that. How many on the conditional use? Because that's where we struggle over. Right now it says the most pertinent. How many need to be pertinent for a conditional use to be met? Jay, do you have a thought on this? Mr. Clem?
I think I would be cautious about putting a specific number that needs to be met, because then a circumstance is going to arise which probably deserves one that doesn't meet your 3 that you need.
I agree. However, again, the concern continues to be expressed that we're not meeting enough of them. So are there better words that we could use instead of all pertinent to imply more need to be met?
If I may, I think it's, this sounds like,
Legal wordsmithing?
yes. I mean, it sounds like we need to kind of, when I say play with this, I don't mean it's
I
not a
understand.
serious thing. We just need to kind of tweak it and figure out how.
We need some choices.
Yeah.
All right,
So-
we'll leave it at that, and I won't belabor it. We'll get you some choices.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I also think along with that, there are occasional times, not very often, when I or another council member might disagree with what planning thinks a condition has been met or not.
We assume that
It
happens
doesn't-
all the time.
Yep.
You know, so there is that. You say it meets it, and I think, well, really? And we're vice versa. That doesn't happen often, but it does happen, which
It
would
does.
affect, if we had a specific number, it would
Yeah.
kind of undermine that idea.
Okay. So then the next section that we're looking at is the text amendment section. Okay, so the text amendment section, it changed heavily in 2000. The reason it changed heavily in 2000 is because we went to post the truck stop debacle that Rick will remember on exit 113. Post that lawsuit, we went to an itemized list of every land use that was legal, not legal, or could be legal under conditional use. And we knew, even though we based it on current land uses at the time, that there would be something that emerged or was new or that we skipped. So we put the text amendment in there, assuming that text amendments could originate with the public. Because we expected that there would be something missing. And there were. I specifically remember a couple industrial uses that came forward that Bob Hughes came in and said, we need a text amendment. What we also did is put the onus on the person wanting the change to hire legal help and get it done. What we've seen happen since 2000 is that people have used that as an opportunity to play with other sections of the zoning ordinance. We haven't seen a lot more new uses added in the last 5 to 8 years. We've seen it used to add items to specific categories. Or, shift a category, make it from a non-permitted use to a permitted in certain categories, something like that. We've also seen that regardless of whether we're shifting the burden to them, we end up doing the work on the back end. And it puts us in an awkward position because we don't feel that it is appropriate to review stuff we have written to you. That seems like a conflict of interest, and we understand our role in that. So we also think that the lawsuit over Foster Park shows what happens when two separate attorney write self-interested sections of the ordinance. And the taxpayers paid for that one. So we believe that the text amendments originating from the public needs to stop now. The ordinance has been tried and true and tested at least since the last 20 years or so, and we need to stop that origination point. What we want to go back to, if the council feels so inclined, is to the procedure before 2000. The procedure before 2000 works a lot like the trolley in the distillery. Someone comes in, they say, hey, I don't like this section of your ordinance. Here's the professional term, it sucks, I want to fix it.
Do this here, but it's not currently permitted.
Yeah.
Is this something you'd be interested in?
Want to change to the chart because I want to do this group home in this residential zone. So they come back to the council, they ask, and the council turns and directs staff and says, please do this change. Not unlike when you wanted to do event facilities, and we didn't want to tackle that without your direction, and y'all directed us to do it, and we still got tackled for it. So we're thinking that text amendments no longer need to originate with the public for the safety of both our pocketbook and for conflict of interest reasons, and because we just don't feel like the reason it was put that way is no longer necessary. Thoughts?
I agree.
Okay. All right. So we'll work with Jay on reversing that out. Again, if people want a change to this law like they would want to any other ordinance, they would come to you and ask for y'all to direct that change to the city manager, Clem, or staff, and then we would proceed, which is how we're doing today. Okay. Last thing is map amendments. We don't really think anything needs to change with that, except that we think that we need to maybe have some discussion, education, or even, and it may not be a good thing to put in the ordinance, so I'm going to look to Jay to this, but when it comes to map amendments, the only thing we're seeing either group struggle with is spot zoning and the definition of spot zoning. And so we might ask for a little clarity on that, and if there should be any clarity that is codified, or if it should just really be training. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. And so then I'm going to end with the clear process section. So one of the things that we did, hoping to be helpful to people that were filing for zoning actions, was to be repetitive. So we had variances in one section, conditional uses in one section, all that got split up. So the process how you go through getting a zoning approval got repeated for each section. And we thought that would be helpful because we could just hand out one sheet of paper with the standards and the process for zoning. It's not helpful. Well, it is helpful for people who read. It's not always helpful for everybody else for some reason. So we're leaning back toward having a very clear application contents process. We're not looking at a lot of changes in those areas, just being super clear and asking ourselves, is that something they're using during the zoning review process for this or this? We'd also like to make the city manager, right now it has the discretion for them to ask for, and it says, any other thing that they might need. We think that we'd like to add one or two things that we should go ahead and start requesting absolutely out of that section and lift it into the other. And by that I mean traffic studies, or since we're so concentrated on transportation, why don't we go ahead and telegraph that? And so we're thinking about taking, articulating one of the vague things that City Manager Clem would be allowed to do and putting it in an articulation. We're questioning the others, whether we still use that or not. There's not one person in this room, God love y'all, that reads a legal description. So what we'd like to say is a plat, and in the absence of a plat, we'd like a legal description. But for them to go and pull a plat and get the legal description when none of us are going to read it, we're just bulking up the public record for no reason. So there are things like that. We also think that we'd like to maybe add some administrative review latitude to Manager Clem's discretion, and specifically for a variance. If it's within like 5%, 10%, something like that. They're often called administrative variances in other jurisdictions. We need to do a little research on this. This is what's going to take us the longest, honestly. But we want to see what latitude other jurisdictions have inserted to basically make day-to-day it run a little faster, when they would be pretty much automatic variances y'all would grant because of the circumstances that are clearly obvious on the site. We may not end up including anything on that, but we want to look at it if that's okay with y'all. And then the last thing is the public hearing process. Y'all have now extended it beyond state law. State law was 15 days, then it went to 30, and now it's at 45. The application deadline is 45. Do you want to extend that out anymore? What we tell people in general is that the zoning process is now a 90-day process. And so they don't love hearing it, but it is what it is. Any concerns about that? We're not talking about changing the process very much at all, I don't think, but we'll review that. Anything that might change would be pretty much a codification of how we're currently behaving, but maybe it doesn't match the ordinance.
So does 45 days give you enough time to?
Yeah, we're dealing with that, no problem.
Would you like more time?
So with zoning actions, there is always, Mr. Mayor, the need to serve the public and let them have adequate review time. That has decreased dramatically with things being able to be online. It used to be the only way you could see a variance was to come into the office and pull the file. That's no longer the case. So that has decreased. The amount of time staff has to prep it, the 45 days is more than adequate and addressed our needs. And then the balance on the other side is the due process owed to the property owner. And so 45 just seems in the middle. It's probably a little skewed toward staff and the public and away from property owner rights, but that's the equilibrium you've hit right now. I'm just making sure that y'all don't have any direction from us on that standard.
If 45 days gets you where you need to be, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Any change in process that y'all can think of that we need to look at or have Frank advise on? I mean, we're basically going to go back and look at the handout Frank gives every year when he trains all the zoning people in the state and make sure that we're in compliance with state law. And if there's anything that we could do to improve, we'll bring it back as a draft for you to look at.
Yeah.
Any further direction for us?
Personally, I think 45 days is a nice balance.
Yeah.
it gives the public a chance to study and come up with questions or deal with that, but it's not undue burden on the property owner. I mean, it probably is a little bit. It'd be nice to have it done next week, but
We advise everybody, we're not attorneys, but we advise everybody that they should plan for at least a 90-day due diligence period, and that seems to get them through zoning, provided, now here's the new wrinkle. What we're seeing now is where it gets outside of that due diligence period is if the P&Z kicks the can for a month, and then they get to mayor and council, and then mayor and council kick the can for the month. So the kick in the can is what is hurting the property owner. So if we could do a better job of collecting information, reviewing information, and people providing all their comments at one time instead of a successive kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I think we all have a little responsibility to be respectful in that arena. But if there are any standards or application contents we can ask to make application more complete on the front end, then people will have less questions or less vagaries. And I'm going to stop here and say, Molly, you got anything you want to add, or? Because we haven't talked about this yet.
No, I just wanted to clarify. Monica started by saying that we have in the past noticed issues with the ordinance and made notes of those and set those to the side for a better time. I want to be clear, that's a mental note. Those aren't physical notes in our office.
Yes. Made note of does not mean we have scribed it on paper and it is a record. Yeah. Let's be clear.
Mayor, could I add one more thing on the section where you talked about the proposal to stop the public origination of the text amendment?
Yes, sir.
I know a few nods around the table. I personally don't have enough information to render any opinion at this point on that recommendation.
I understand.
So when you saw a couple of nods, that doesn't include me, because I don't know enough about that to even come close to deciding if that's a good idea or a bad one.
Okay.
Just wanted to note that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is there certain information is there certain information you'd like to be able to make that decision? Is there something we can bring to you to?
Definitely. I mean, it's like,
What might
I don't know if it's good or bad, or.
Do you want examples of other jurisdictions? Do you want Frank to tell you whether that's a good idea or a bad idea? Like what sort of information would you want?
Do you want to know how many lawsuits or dollars it's cost us, or how many conflicts of interest we've had in the last 10 years?
I hate to sound so adversarial. I don't even know enough about that subject to recommend where to get more information.
Okay. Well, I think the place that I might recommend to start is we start with Frank's comments on what best practices are, and the most close alignment to state law, and then how we vary from that. And then we'll look at a couple of ordinance jurisdictions, maybe 2 or 3, that allow the public or outside attorneys to propose legislation when they're not legislators.
And maybe a short list of
problems?
No, of examples in the past that have been publicly generated here in Madison.
We could easily probably generate text amendments that have been. Let me be clear. I'm not concerned about. I don't think we have the discretion to say. Well, I don't know. That's a J question. We might not have the discretion to say one section for the other. If we were talking about people adjusting the land use table, I don't think we have any concerns with that. That still is in the expected range. Where we didn't expect it is when people started rewriting sections of the ordinance that they just didn't want to comply with. It became an alternative to a variance, was to rewrite the law so it suited them. And that is where the problem lies. And so maybe what we'll do is do a little bit of all 3 there, and the last version is we'll take all the text amendments, since we've changed the law to allow the public to generate them, and put them into columns of what they did. Do they edit the use table? Did they edit a section of compliance? Did they edit a standard they just didn't want to follow? And maybe that'll help you look at the range of what people are asking for.
I guess to put it real simply, when I see the terminology public originated text amendments being banned, that makes the hair in the back of my neck stand up. So in my mind, it kind of puts the burden on you guys to convince me that it's a good idea to eliminate that.
Well, I
But
think
just the
that's only
concept,
fair.
It does not sit well with me that we're taking away something the public has a right to do now. But I could be.
Right.
that's
I
just-
think that's only fair because we had to convince the council in the first place to allow it. There is no other ordinance that allows the public to generate an edit. And so we introduced this exception in 2000 just for the zoning ordinance because the council wanted to go to this directive list. There is no other ordinance in our code of ordinances that allows edits to originate with the public.
See, and that's the kind of history. that
This
I
is an
don't even-
exception to the
That's the kind
rule.
of information that I don't have.
Okay,
Just
well, we'll
what-
try to provide you some background, and then, and I actually don't believe we should address issues that aren't real issues. And so we'll do the table and see if it's really a problem anywhere else. And maybe anecdotal evidence is not as good as actually looking at it by data-driven information, so we'll try that.
Yeah, and I would say for text amendments, just to give a little deep dive, to Monica's point, it gets very awkward. Most people aren't coming with a lawyer to help them draft the amendment. So they come to us saying, we would like to do this thing, and we say, great, well, you'll need to draft it and bring it to us. And then they bring us handwritten notes about things they'd like to see, and then we have to create an ordinance on their behalf, a text amendment on their behalf.
That we often had to speak
That we then have to write a staff report and say whether it complies or doesn't comply. So it's that administrative, that's where it gets really tricky and sticky and awkward. If we simply said, I'm sorry, but I can't help you draft this in any way, shape, or form, you'll have to bring it to us in a fully written form. But that's another option. We could take a hard line on that, but that we haven't done that. We have tried to be helpful. So.
All right. Anything? Yes, sir.
I have a couple things.
Yes, sir.
You started out by saying, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm not trying to be smart either. I want to be
Okay.
frank. Who's Frank?
Oh, I'm sorry. So Frank Jenkins is who we have used as, I'm going to call him, he won't like it this way, but I'm going to call him the accessory zoning attorney. The two people in the state that are most revered in terms of zoning are Frank Jenkins, who wrote the state law on zoning and then has drafted amendments and defended it on multiple occasions. He actually has a connection to Morgan County, so he always comes and does our training. So we get it from the expert. He's defended us in multiple lawsuits, some successful, some not as successful. The other one is Kathy Zickert. We often will send something to her, or have sent something to her just to get feedback or comment on. But Kathy has, how do I say this? Sometimes planners refer to her as having moved to the dark side. For years, she worked in municipal law and defended local municipalities, and then she decided to start suing local municipalities. But so that is kind of a Darth Vader approach. But what's good about that is we get to see it from both sides. We get to see it from the expert in writing law, and we get to see it from the expert in poking a hole in the law. And these are people who practice zoning law every day and have done so for 30 or 40 years. And so these are not only people, they're attorneys that are zoning experts. And so we don't assume that we know everything. We work from a position of information and expertise, but we don't assume that we're going to defend it. So Jay would defend our ordinance, but every time we use Lambert Reitman, Joe Reitman would often call Frank for backup, and that's very common. And I believe Kathy and Frank actually jointly defended us in the Foster Park lawsuit that they won.
But Frank was also, Jim, the expert that Rick was unsuccessful at getting him to pin down how many of the standards do we need to be met. All of them, majority of them, two of them.
I didn't say he wasn't an attorney.
I guess that's my follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
Frank and Kathy and the crew, are we charged every time we use services from GMA? Does GMA do anything for free?
We haven't used them a lot for legal services out of our department, but Jay may have, and I know that when things are in a non-planning realm, I know that we use GMA Legal for lots of things.
We,
city attorneys call on GMA a lot. We're members, most of us are, just like the city is. And so we'll call their legal team, Rushi Patel in particular and his crew over there. If we just have a legal question, usually outside of zoning, for city stuff, and they don't charge the city or us as far as I'm aware. Your membership sort of gets you access to that stuff. But I don't think they do like zoning rewrites or anything like that. They probably give you some advice, but
No, they would send us to the RC.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Regional Commission. I talk in acronyms. I'm very sorry. And that's why we use the people who've defended or defended cities or sued cities over zoning laws.
Is there any way for us to schedule trainings here and do like in-kind?
So, yes, sir, we usually do that every other fall, and we do a cross-training with, to get the most effective use of public funds. Instead of sending y'all to a $250 conference and paying for travel and overnight stay, we pay Frank to come and do a half-day workshop on a Saturday, and we train 6 of you and HPC, corridor, and zoning board, and that would be 21 people if they all show up, and then also planning staff is there, and Manager Clem if he comes. So that it's a more effective use of taxpayer dollars. So we'll probably arrange one for spring since you're new.
That would be a great idea.
Any further direction for the planning department this morning, and I'll
And I'd just
bow out.
like to say this, I think all of us in this room know this, but when we go to GMA conferences, and if any city asks anything about planning, they always refer back to our planning staff. Monica's modern about this, but they always, if you want someone best in the state concerning planning, talk to Monica Callahan.
Well,
The
I
city
appreciate
does
those kind of
that.
thoughts, but they're not necessary this morning. I just want to say that we are going to come to work every day and try to do a good job. That's it.
Appreciate what you do.
And even better when it's not necessary, it's just volitional.
Okay, pedestrians and cyclists safety?
That would be me. I see this as the beginning of a conversation that I have become increasingly aware of the number of people in our community who don't know that they should wear light-colored clothes when they walk in the dark, or have some sort of light or some reflective vest or something of that sort. And it sent me off an edge. I've almost run over 2 or 3 people going to the fitness center at 6 o'clock in the morning. And it seems like people are walking out in the road. There are bicycles that are going against traffic rather than with traffic. I mean, it's just nuts. And I'm not sure what to do about that, but I have this nagging urge to do something. I contacted the school superintendent and the director of safety and asked them if we could sit down and have a conversation about this, and maybe have the kids, who I think oftentimes have more of an impact on adults than adults do, if the kids did something to draw our attention to those things through maybe some sort of poster contest or videos that they could create or something of that sort. But I'm afraid we're going to lose some citizens. And I can't imagine why they would not do the things that make sense, but they don't.
Are these older citizens or young citizens?
That's it. It doesn't really matter, does it? I've almost taken out the same guy at my driveway 2 mornings. He wears dark clothes, guys. What's up with that? It's like, really? You're gonna be out here in the dark in dark clothes. So just know that that's in my heart, and I plan to initiate a conversation, and I would love for us to get behind that kind of effort. And I'm not sure what that would look like, whether there's a declaration or a proclamation or something that we could look forward to down the road, but I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Dr. Merrill, since you was talking about the school superintendent, maybe even media, the media could maybe do a commercial. I know for a while when Chris Hodges was here, she was really big on litter. And the school actually did like a little skit, a commercial for media. Maybe we could post it on our page on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever we are, just to talk about the safety of our citizens. That's just an idea.
Thank you. That's great. I say again, it's the beginning of a conversation. I'd love to know where you are on that kind of an issue. My first thought was, we need to pass an ordinance that says that you have to have a light. And the libertarian in me went nuts. It was like, yeah, right, we don't need laws to make people to do what's right.
True.
We need to
Good conversation.
educate them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate that. Councilmember Joseph Simon, liaison persons.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I brought this up at a previous meeting, and we could have delayed in deference to giving Jim some time to think about it. Basically, we're usually at the end of, or the beginning of each new term, which would be January, we sort of vaguely talk about this. It seems like the precedent in the past has always been assignments for liaisons go to whatever council member wants to volunteer to be the liaison in one of the commissions they're interested in. I have attached at the end of the today's agenda, I've put together a list of the current assignments that I got from the city website. So first of all, if there's any errors in that, let me know, but that's what appears to be the current list of assignments for liaisons. There's something, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Betsy, you and I did a change, was it 3 years ago when you went on to HPC and I? Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago. So there's something to be said, I think, maybe every couple of years. There's a good argument to be made to maybe do more rotational of these assignments. I think it helps us be more rounded council members and learn maybe a different aspect of city government that we don't know about. It also gives us a chance to maybe meet more of our council-appointed commissioners and to, interact on a little wider range with some of our citizens. So there's benefits, I think, to maybe changing them every couple of years. You could also make the argument that you've developed good relationships with your commissioners and the people that come to that commission, and why would you want to give up that experience? So I can see both sides. So this is the current one. I wanted to, mainly the purpose was to see where Jim wanted to go. And at the same time as I'm thinking about it, I wanted to put, without any prep work at all, with my colleague on my right here, I wanted to see whether Rick was interested in perhaps moving off of corridor and allowing me to move into that position and give up the two I currently have. But that is, I haven't talked with Rick. I probably should have before I put him on the spot publicly. But
So let me just say this.
Yeah.
I've talked with, we noticed we just appointed Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Reed to the DDA for the next 3 years, I guess. I had a conversation with Councilmember Malinowski. He has agreed to serve on the housing team, the GIC team. I had a conversation with, these are open. I had a conversation with Councilmember Bland about serving on planning and zoning commission, which is not assigned
May,
as of now. Yes.
if I may?
Yes.
It's my understanding, I think our planning department could weigh in. It's my understanding that we don't necessarily have a council person assigned to that, only because a lot of that comes to the
comes
city
to us,
council for a
right.
decision.
Right.
So it could almost be a conflict of interest if we actually have an assigned. That's kind of my understanding. It could be it could be wrong. I might not have to articulate that correctly.
You're
You're not
correct.
wrong about that. Jay, go ahead,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You're correct. I think that would, I think it would be a little inappropriate to do that, only from the public perception of a council member overlooking or being a liaison to a planning commission and then ultimately hearing the same case again. But
So in the past, we have 3 regulatory commissions, HPC, Corridor, and the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have had, without naming names, at least 1 council member, maybe 2, that we've had a problem with them wanting to participate either at the work session or at the regular meeting. And we've had to have that very awkward conversation where we remind them that they're as an observational role, and they cannot participate in the dialogue, because should they do that, they have indicated some form of bias, preference, or information that the rest of the council does not have. So just be aware, if you are on HPC, Planning and Zoning, or the Corridor Board as a liaison, your role is to sit and observe, and I mean that kindly.
And your reference is to past council members? None of us, of course, would fit.
Of course not.
Thank
I
you.
am actually referring to, the past. I had to, this was back when we shared the commission with the county, I had to back a mayor and council member off of participating in a work session. You want to talk about awkward, about telling your boss and leading up, that was awkward. But the way we explain that is, if you participate, you probably should expect to recuse yourself when it gets to your body. But those are all the regulatory boards. All the others, none of our elected body currently holds a position on any of our boards. They're not voting positions. But those 3 are observational roles. They are not participatory roles. For instance, Rick gets the same packets that the commissioners get, and he might call me once or twice a year and ask me a question about the corridor if there's something happening. It's mostly in his district, and I'm not interfering with y'all's thing y'all got going on today. But he's not a regular attendee. But Betsy, I think, goes to every HPC meeting. So your level of activity is really up to you. And we're happy to have y'all on whatever board you agree to serve on.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, and for other council members, Fred asked me would I be willing, and I expressed those concerns to him. I think it's great to hear it for the first time coming here. I know others feel differently, but that's been my position on it.
Rick, is your mic on?
Yeah.
It might not
Well,
be.
my light's on, but it must not be working.
And I think that the big difference between the 3 is that HPC and Corridor
Exactly.
only come to us on appeal, which is pretty rare, as you know, whereas pretty much everything that planning and zoning passes does come to us. Almost everything they do comes to us. So that, to me, makes a big difference in support.
Well, there
for-
is one exception with HPC. Corridor, not so much, but HPC actually does take legislative recommendation action like zoning would. When they recommend the designation of a district, an item, or a landmark, that those kind of things are legislative actions, not quasi-judicial actions, and they do come up to you, but those are seldom and few, to be clear. All right,
And-
I'm going to go over here.
And if I may, I know that not having an assigned liaison to planning and zoning does not preclude council members for attending a particular, but to a planning and zoning meeting, but,
That's true. And in fact, I had a personal approval of that from our prior city manager, Jimmy Carter, who said, no, by all means, you're entitled to go. He recommended against making comments because it could jeopardize my ability to be impartial when it came to us. But he says, oh, by all means, you're certainly entitled to attend those meetings. And that really applies to any of these commission meetings. Just because you're not the liaison doesn't mean you're not welcome to attend those and participate to whatever degree the committee chairman might allow you to participate. Are you comfortable, Betsy, staying on HPC?
yeah, and I'm open to somebody else wanting to come in. I mean, I do enjoy being on HPC, but I'm open for more experience. I also feel like, to your point, I mean, I think it is nice to change up. You know, some time ago, my contention was, I feel like, you know, all of these folks on our commissions are volunteers. They show up, they do the work, and I feel like, you know, that we should be there, at least on occasion, just to acknowledge that they are doing the work and we are here because they're working for us. My other, the other point I brought up some time ago as well is for council members with whom, whichever commission they're representing, maybe make a quarterly report. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what's going on in the Housing Commission without having to attend the meetings. And that doesn't mean you have to give me a blow-by-blow account, but, so here's some of the things housing was dealing with in this last quarter. Here's some of the things, I don't know, we don't have public, oh, there it is, or public arts. So what are they doing? Are they showing up? And are they doing the work that we have the commissions, that for the reason we have the commissions set up for, you know? But anyway, I would love to know more without having to attend, you know, all the meetings, what kind of just sort of the climate, what's going on in the commissions. So I would recommend that we do just sort of a 3-minute quarterly report on our assignments.
If I could ask Rick, since it sounds like the city attorney and is not really recommending we have a liaison to planning and zoning, what does that do for your interest in liaisoning? Wait, is that a word? I don't think so.
Well, they're all taken, except for the Public Arts Commission, and I am woefully inadequately knowledgeable or quite frankly, I'm not interested in serving on that. I'm glad we have it, and they do good things, and I appreciate them, but I was going to swap you the cemetery for the corridor since you were in the swapping or
And you raised me one.
I don't know if this is to be settled today or first of the year, but I'm happy to serve wherever, Mayor, if you.
We can get ready to serve. If you want to serve on cemetery, and Councilmember George, you wants to stay on green space?
Yeah, I would like to come down to just to one commission and then
Okay.
leave the option open to go to other meetings. But as far as an official liaison, I'd be happy to do, if Rick is willing to give up corridor, I'd like to do that one. And then that would leave green space and the cemetery open. If you're more interested in doing green space, or someone else wants to add to green space. There's no real guidance to have only one or none or two. I mean, it's really kind of up to us as I understand it. I mean, and Jim, I assume you're interested in doing the housing one, if I got that correctly?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I've heard some of the good things that they're doing, and I got really excited about being a part of
Always.
it, actually.
Good.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Okay, well, we can make these appointments
Sure.
final in January.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think Councilmember George, you want to say something about heating?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mary. Yeah, this kind of came up yesterday. I wanted to get kind of a plug in for a program called the HEAT program. The City of Madison is a part of that. It's a heating energy assistance team, and it allows citizens throughout Georgia to donate to a fund which is administered by the HEAT 501c3 based in Atlanta, and they distribute money to support heating bills for last year over 1,000 needy citizens in the state of Georgia to help with their heating bills during winter. And being a gas provider here in Madison, we're part of that. And it's really an impressive program. I haven't told Ken yet. I'm making all these announcements. I haven't even talked to the people that are involved, like Rick or Ken. But anyway, I'd like to, Kiki Honeycutt is our city representative to HEAT. She's in our accounting department. And we would like to get together with Ken and put something in our newsletter. And I'm going to reach out to the newspaper, maybe get something in there to let people know for two reasons. One, they can make donations either on a monthly basis or on a one-time only donation. And if we can get some stuff we want to put back in the utility bill, another sign-up letter like we had last month. And we want to do that for December. And that's when they start granting the donations. Also, besides soliciting donations, a little better outreach would help needy recipients know how to apply for this. and get some assistance to keeping their houses warm during the winter. Ken, I see you.
Well, you mentioned what I was going to say, that we did have a letter in the last newsletter, or last utility bill, that people could sign up for donating to this. I'd have to check to see our insert schedule. I think December's usually dog license application. So we could do that front, back, but we'll look into that. And the heat organization, they're very good. They usually about this time send us a lot of social media already prepped. And so we'll be seeing that. We have in the past had newsletter articles, and so we have one coming out. So maybe the finance department, maybe that'll be, because we've gone to a new paradigm for newsletters where every department is supposed to have an article in the newsletter. And so I'm sure finance probably is the hardest one to write a letter every 2 months, but this will be a good one for them, so we'll make a suggestion to them. And we've had it in the newsletter in the past, so I can give them a representative article, so they don't have to work quite as hard.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
In the information they gave us, they have a list by name of all approximately 750 individual donors to that program. And being me, I went through this darn 750 person list. I saw one name from Morgan County that I recognized. And my meager contribution came in after this publication. So hopefully next year there'll be 2 names. But I can guarantee you we need more names on this list of people that have donated. And it's not by money. It just, I think any check will put you on that list. So anyway, you'll be hearing more about that. Look in your bills for the December utility bills, and there'll be another sign-up opportunity to donate.
But I will say, to Kiki's credit, when you pass the case in the lobby, there are probably 6 awards that Madison's gotten from HEAT for
That's
being
right.
among the high. So she's always shooting to get another one. So
Yeah.
she'll be glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, we're a small town, and we've gotten awards for the amount of money we have raised for that program. It's kind of impressive. Thank you for that
Thank you,
time, Mayor.
Councilmember George. Anything else for this work session?
Mr. Mayor, I have one comment. I guess I'd like to make a plug for EntreFest. The Wheelhouse is, I'm going to call it a mini conference next Friday. And there's a session that I'm really intrigued by called Redefining Leadership that is at 9 o'clock, and then free lunch. The whole thing is free. So, and the mayor had already sent out an email encouraging us to attend. But I'd like to remind you that, what was it, 2 years ago, he said the Wheelhouse was the best kept secret in Madison. It continues to be the best kept secret in Madison, and I'd love to see us get beyond that. So.
And to our council, you got an email from our city manager about attending the retreat on the 24th. That's the 24th. Suits everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you'll get us some time, John, the time we need to be there and all of that. Okay, thank you. Okay, need to get a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation and personnel.
So moved.
Second.
There more discussion. All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none. Well, gives you time to take a quick break and we'll go into executive.